All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite dark sorcerer here, Angelus, son of Abaddon. And today, I'd like to talk to you about dark sorcery and astronomy. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you don't really pay much attention to the lunar cycles throughout the month, or year for that matter. You hear a little bit about, say, for an example, asteroids or meteorite showers, and people go out and pay attention to it. You see a lot with, oh crap. Yeah, there we go. You see a lot with things talking about going to the moon or when the last time people went to the moon. Things going on the other planets within our solar system about visiting them, the droids or the land rovers, and what they're picking up on these planets. But you also been seeing on Google about other solar systems. But a lot of people that are into the occult, that are into black magic, sorcery in general, they really don't pay much attention to astrology, numerology even, and how it plays into dark sorcery. So I thought I'd take a moment and kind of just talk to you a little bit about this stuff. Okay? Now, a lot of people, when they think planetary, they don't really take into consideration the alignments and the power that comes from these planetary alignments and shields, these banners. They normally go by, oh, I'm an Aries, or I'm a Scorpio, or I'm a Gemini, a Pisces, a Leo. Okay? Anybody can sit there and say, well, my birthday falls underneath this. But let's say, for an example, you ask them, what does it entail? How can you use that to your personal benefit? Hmm. Let's say, for an example, one thing that always comes across on my messenger, every time I get underneath messenger and I go underneath that second, the messages aspect that you have to actually accept by typing in there, something to that person, is a lot of people are begging to be a part of the group. They want to be a part of the Illuminati, or they want to be a part of, they're just looking to bring a lost love back into their life. They want somebody destroyed. They want somebody dead. It's just because they want it. There's no meaning behind it. It's like when you're driving down the street and you cut somebody off, they refer to it as road rage. So it will follow you for as long as it takes until they get over it. Okay? So let's talk about astrology in the sense. Okay? Let's say, for example, you want it for love. Okay? This is by Olivia, and it's called Erotic Astrology, about him or her. Okay? This is about every single zodiac sign, from Aquarius to Sagittarius. The first being Aries, the last being Aquarius, because Aquarius goes from December into January and February. Now, what's interesting is that they say that Aries is the first zodiac. It really is not. Because if you look at it, Aquarius would be the first because it's in January and February, whereas Aries is March and April. Interesting how that goes, right? But let's say, for example, you want to learn about somebody's personality traits. You want to learn the art of seduction. You want to understand an individual's personality, their demeanor. Are they dominant? Are they submissive? Are they aggressive or are they gentile? What type of attributes do they seek out? Well, especially in a partnership, what are they seeking? It's right here. It's one of those books that really brings to light the individual's perspectives of desire from a planetary stature. Aries would be Mars. Venus, obviously a feminine. Mars is a male, masculine. But it goes further than that. A lot further. You can tell somebody's future. A lot of times, palmistry, chiromancy type practices. But let's say, for example, you want to get into the definitive guide to using astrology in every aspect of your life. And this is by Julia and Derek Parker. Okay? This is one of the books that my dad gave me. And it is very, very good because it doesn't just pick and choose the horoscope. No, it goes far beyond. It goes into planetary, Mercury. It goes into, how should I say this? It goes into the different signs that can correlate underneath one specific setting. Let's say, for example, you're an Aries. Okay. Now, Aries is associated with the color red, the cardinal for a bird. It's a fire sign. Therefore, it's passion, desire. Okay. More so, it's ruled by the planet Mars, the god of war's planet. Aries is a dominant, a leader. Therefore, when you look at the other signs that can befall that one sign, let's say, for example, Mars and Venus, or Saturn and Jupiter, it would affect the mood of that Aries. All right. And one of the grand scales that was put forth under this is due to the brain chemistry of an individual. So if you draw a line straight across, okay, and then on that line, the up and down faction, and you tie this in with the lunar activity, you'll have what is known as the lycanthrope analogy. Okay, now what is the lycanthrope analogy? The lycanthrope analogy is the moods. Think of it as some people, medical personnel would call it schizophrenia or some form of delusional state. But when you really get into it, it really defines the emotional stability of that particular zodiac, that particular person. When that line is above the straight line, all things are good. It's love, love, joy, joy. When you're below that, you're depressed, angry, sad. And if it's fluctuating between the two, well, obviously there's a chemical imbalance. It's psychological. Just like the moon itself, the phase of the moon has its massive effects, not just on the oceans and the tides, but also yourself. Okay? But it goes beyond that, too. For an example, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, The Astrology of the Four Horsemen. Now, this one here was actually done by a Christian, and I thought she did pretty well on it because of the fact that when you get into the astrological symbols, the signs and the planetary settings, not just the moon phase itself throughout that entire month or that entire setting, but she really gets into the world events and how it affects the world. Jesse Stern, Stearn, A Time for Astrology. This I found to be more of a teaching tool. Kind of like this next one by Michael R. Meyer, prefaced by Diane Rudhyar. That's Rudhyar. Okay? And it's called A Book for the Humanistic Astrologer. This one I really like. Okay? But more so, how does this tie in with black magic? How does it tie into sorcery and, say, chiromancy, necromancy, nigromancy, even? How does it play into, say, Satanism, witchcraft? Well, here it is. Let's go into the grimoire system. Okay. Now, for an example, Richard Cavendish, The Black Arts. He's got 3 different editions out just on that one book. I liked his book because it talked a lot about numerology and astrology settings. More so when you expand further and you get into, say, demonology or angelology, calling forth Satan, calling forth Beelzebub, Astaroth, Asmodai. You know, there's certain times of the year that is beneficial for you when you're trying to summon them throughout the month. It's not just drawing a circle on the ground, the circle of empowerment, utilizing the triangle of evocation to summon them and to petition them. No, there's a lot more to it. You consider there's a numerology, how should I say this, a numerological outlook just on that alone. It's like a key sequence, working with that specific moon phase, working with that certain planetary alignment. Like obviously for Azazel or say for an example, Satan, that would fall under Saturn, the dark planet, because it has very little, if not any, sunshine to it. It's a gas giant, right? So therefore, that would house Satan. It would house a demon. You can utilize this to tell somebody's age. You can bring it right down to the exact minute, the exact second that they were born. How their life is going to expand and unfold throughout the year. All of this plays into effect, ladies and gentlemen. But let's go into astrology. Let's go into grimoire traditions even further. The Key of Solomon, the designs for planetary states, the 7 planetary states, how to ensnare and call upon a spirit, how to utilize that spirit for your benefit. See, this is why I was never into Solomantic, like the clavicle of Solomon, because they called on the names of power. They utilized the Grand Grim War aspects of summoning a demon and threatening them into submission. I don't believe in summoning them in that manner. If you're going to work with a demon, if you're going to work with an angelic, even if it's they're considered a fallen angel, you do it with respect. You gain more that way because you're building a relationship with that being. But here's the thing: in the Key of Solomon, which is one of the grimoires of the earliest, around the time of, say, the Constitution of Pope Honorius, known as the Grimoire of Honorius. The clavicle of Solomon was used to ensnare 72 demons into a magical ring, an Orcrox. One of these beings was Belial, who, according to some authors, would approach not directly, but he would have an entourage going before him, especially when Solomon the king summoned him. But each planet has a specific hour. Remember what I said about numerology? An hour that you can call on them. When is it best to call upon them? When is it best to petition them? Later, when you get into things like, let's say, for example, the three books of occult philosophy put forth by Agrippa. You're learning about the seven rare metals. You're learning about the seven spirits, the seven planetary alignments. And you're learning about the seven colors. You're learning about the different alchemical sequences and astrological perspectives. You get into The Magus by Francis Barrett, and you're seeing how each symbol, from the witch or the sorcerer, sorceress, all the way up into that almighty being, that spirit, is referenced and ranked. You see it because within these things. And it's not just that. Why is it that most black magic and sorcery is done in the hours of meridian? Or perhaps the witch's hour, which is around 11 p.m. to 1 p.m. It's ironic that you see so many different ideals when petitioning spirits, when dealing with astrology. But it goes further. Let's go into spell working, root workings. Everything to do with, let's say, for an example, a creation of a relationship. Prosperity would be in the waxing moon. This is the portion of the moon leading up to the full moon. The full moon being the most beneficial aspects, the most potency within this form. This would be great for love rituals, lust rituals, or whatever you want to call them. Anton Szandor LaVey referred to them as compassion rituals leading up to this, and then the lust rituals being performed on this. But then you have what is known as the waning moon. This is the portion in the time frame going from the full moon back to the normal lunar cycle of the quarter to half moon. This is the dark side of the moon, basically. And this time frame can be used for curses, hexes, the very type of things that you want to do within baneful sorcery. And trust me, it has very beneficial applications. So the three types of rituals that can be performed is compassion, lust, and destruction. But these can also be broken down into various different types of sorcery. that befall one of these three categories. So yes, the lunar cycle, astrology, plays into a huge effect. You take the video I did yesterday here on this channel and the one that I did on Dark Sorcery's channel, okay? The lunar cycle plays into a huge part. You have to know when a certain moon phase is going to hit so you can perform the ritual of your need or the customer's need. For an example, there are other aspects here. The blue moon, the blood moon, the super moons. Each one of these is a portion of the lunar phase that really enhances and blows your magic sky high. And I'm not talking blowing it out of the water. No, I'm talking about manifesting in greater effects. It's more potent. Okay. The blood moon is great for satanic rites, satanic rituals of, say, the Black Mass, the renewal of pacts, because it's known as the harvest moon. It's known as the blood moon, the hunter's moon. And it's something that's very, very good for demonic sorcery. It's the same thing with All Hallows Eve, Halloween to the world. Same exact thing. But these type of moons, the blood moon appears every 6 months. It's more common. The blood moon maybe once or twice a year. Super moons happen probably a couple of times a year. About 3, maybe 4 times a year. Depends on the leap, if it's a leap year or not. But those super moons, just a couple of years ago, we had 5 different super moons in 1 year. That hasn't been done in like 500 years. I think it was. I think they said it was 500 to 1500 years was the last time 5 supermoons of various different colors appeared in 1 year. And you can do a lot with that connection. That connection alone, when you're utilizing the circle of empowerment and you're utilizing the triangle of evocation, depending on what you're doing for sorcery, for magic, what are you calling upon? What are you focusing and channeling? Okay, what kind of ritual are you performing? All of this plays into effect within astrology. If you're trying to seduce someone, this would fall underneath a lust ritual, okay? But can also fall underneath a compassion ritual, especially if you're looking for that mate. What's the best way to approach him or her? How can you entice them? How can you utilize their desires against them to make them fall for you? Trust me when I tell you that this stuff works, because I've employed it quite successfully over 25 years to get what I want. And guess what? And today, I'm content with what I have, but I'm looking for more. But here's the kicker. Only you can decide how far you take your sorcery and your magic. Are you going to delve into the darkness with a full-on belly flop? Or are you going to just dip that toe in as a dabbler? That's up to you. But any true sorcerer, sorceress, witch, warlock, necromancer, satanist, they're not going to be dabblers. No. They're going to make those deals. They're going to delve into these sorceries, and they're going to utilize all these to which I just discussed here today in their sorcery. And they're going to do it with a song in their heart. Enjoy, ladies and gentlemen.